The South African government says progress is being made on its 2024-29 medium-term development plan, but there are serious challenges that remain. Minister Maropene Ramokgopa says youth unemployment critically high, 58.5%, housing delivery lagging, only 17,000 units completed, and that represents only 27% of the target. The April to September 25 report shows gains in energy stability and industrial development, but local government capacity, infrastructure and persistent poverty and inequality are threatening South Africa's developmental goals. Let's talk about the latest report from the ministry with the Minister Ramokgopa. Good morning, Minister, and thank you for your time. We do appreciate it there. I just shared in the opening some of the highlights of what you presented yesterday. I think let's just start with an explanation, Minister, of the work that your ministry does. If you were giving a 30-second elevator pitch on the DPME, how would you preface that? How would you share that?
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. Our job, of course, is to plan for the entire government so that we can then now be able to allow different departments as well as the province to give them an idea of how to actually have APPs. And we also are aligning, of course, what the municipalities should do through the DDMs. Then later on, we then now monitor the performance so that we can then now have early warnings, if possible, to see if performance that we have set through the outcome facilitation is actually being met or not. We will then now later on evaluate the impact of those performance in society through frontline monitoring to see if things are done in such a way that they've changed life. For example, if we're going to be saying that we need to create 18,000 jobs in a specific period of time, we would then now go and evaluate if those jobs, if they are created, they are quality jobs that are actually being able to change the economy and change the labor force as a whole.
Yeah.
So that's what we do in the main.
All right, so we've reached our destination then in terms of that elevator pitch. So again, going back to the reason for your department's existence, part of that is also to build enforcement and accountability. We've seen in this recent report housing delivery at 27% of its target, municipal debt that continues to climb. What's the point, Minister, of the monitoring if the departments continue to underperform year after year?
The point of monitoring is to do exactly that. When there is underperformance, we are able to go twice a year to cabinet to report on this. But what we actually do again is that we facilitate a process for the president and the deputy president to actually have a one-on-one with the minister, the deputy minister, and the DG. That process for this year has actually already started, and we would be highlighting that this is what we said you should do. You haven't been able to do it. Then the president would then now be able to speak to those ministers and then be able to give them a matching order. Later on, of course, decisions will be made by him when we come back again after 6 months to say that it hasn't been done or it hasn't been done. So we are actually able to give the president a line of sight of what's happening in departments, and if the targets that were set and agreed upon with him and the whole cabinet are actually being done.
So based on that criteria, don't you think the housing minister, the labour minister should be given their marching orders, given the abysmal unemployment numbers, youth unemployment, according to your latest report, critically high, 58%, on housing reaching only 27% of the target?
I remember that
Okay, we've lost our signal there, it would appear. Let's try to re-establish so we can get Minister Ramokgopa's response. Team, just let me know if we've been able to re-establish a contact there. But let me give you some of the numbers from the report that the minister shared yesterday. GDP growth, 0.8%. In the second quarter. That's the strongest since 2022. But there's those unemployment numbers that even though we've added 248,000 jobs, leading unemployment to drop to 31.9%, as I've just mentioned, youth unemployment high at 58.5%. Some of the good indicators, 175 consecutive days without load shedding. mixed performance. We have had weak areas, as I've just mentioned as well, 27% of housing delivery. We've had infrastructure investment of just over $1 trillion, but there are delays inside that. So the major challenges to what we are hearing, municipal debt at 94.6 billion rand. We've seen capacity constraints across local government. We've got slow movement on reducing poverty in South Africa, and you juxtapose that with the high cost of living, and we certainly have a really sad picture in terms of the lived experience of millions of South Africans. Again, we're struggling to get the minister back on. Let's just hold on for a second or two. This was the April to September 2025 report the minister was sharing with us. I think that she is back. Minister, we were talking about when these reports are presented to the Deputy President and the President, they have the one-on-ones with ministers, and they, you know, those who aren't performing are given their marching orders. And I put the question to you, well, then, given the numbers you've just shared, what about the Minister for, the Labour Minister and the Housing Minister? Shouldn't they be given their marching orders then, given the numbers? And you were responding to that question. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I was actually responding to say that we have found that most of the work that have been created, or the jobs that have been created, were actually created from public works, not necessarily the department itself, but more on the jobs that were created in government itself. Programs from COCTA, programs for public works, programs from the Department of Labour itself, programs from CITAS, as well as programs from NYDA, and programs, of course, from the Presidential Youth Stimulus as well. So that is actually more on the work that has been created in South Africa. 70% of it come from what government has created. So as a result, what we then now need to do is to then now bring all the coordination in terms of the departments that should stimulate the economy, should create an enabling environment, DTIC, all the other departments in the economic cluster, to be able to come together to say, what do we do to actually ensure that we stimulate the economy so that the private sector can then now be able to create jobs. Yeah. And we've been able to do that. Would have seen logistics are actually starting to move. There have been interventions that have been done so that economy can grow, so that we can then now be able to create jobs. So we are doing something in terms of that. So part of what we do, we don't just come and say you didn't do this. We say we look at what would have been the causal factor of things not happening the way that we have set it for ourselves. Then we then now come up with intervention that should be able to push the department to do what they need to do. If ever the issue would be that it is performance only of probably maybe the minister or the deputy minister, we would then now advise the president to act in other way. But if it is just a structural issue, we then now come up with intervention on how do we fix those structural issues that are causing us not to be able to reach our targets.
Your report, Minister, mentions corrective actions being taken to accelerate delivery in underperforming areas. Can you name for us, or just highlight out of that, 3 concrete corrective actions that your ministry has enforced over the last 6 months, and what the consequences were for either ministries or departments that failed to implement them?
Remember that we don't enforce consequences, as I've already said. Ours is to highlight, then be able to bring early warnings, and then, because remember that I don't appoint ministers, but what we do then, we would escalate the matter to the president if our interaction with a specific department doesn't change. For example, there will be a review now in terms of what is happening in the CITAS, the Department of Higher Education. There will also be a review on what is happening in terms of what we are doing in terms of NSFAS, so that we can then now look at best ways to be able to administer public funds in such a way that they would yield the desired results. The minister is actually responding. Department of Labour as well. There is a review on how these labs are actually administered, so that we can then now be able to create jobs. But equally so, the issue that you are seeing in the changes of the reforms that are put in place in logistics have been part of the work that we have been able to do as a department. So those are some of the things that I can actually talk about, where you see a change, where you see an improvement in sectors of the economy, but also sectors of society where we need intervention to actually be made.
Let's talk about the municipal debt, Minister, reaching nearly 95 billion rand. You have acknowledged that many municipalities are simply failing. What does the IMC or the Interministerial Committee actually have the power to do differently, against the backdrop of previous attempts by local government to fix local government?
In the past, of course, we've only just concentrated on interventions using the Constitution or even Structures Act in terms of what the Department of Treasury or COGTA can actually do to intervene in a failing municipality. However, this time around, through presidential coordinating councils and through other initiatives that the president has actually put in place, we are able to put in departments such as water and sanitation, even electricity and other ones, to actually go directly into municipalities to intervene. But the Treasury as well have done a review of CFOs or financial officers in municipalities, and we are setting up standards at which it will then now have to be followed in terms of what kind of a CFO are you putting in a specific position to be able to run the municipality. So those standards would be able to help us to standardize how we actually appoint those that should then now assist us to be accountable in terms of the finances of the municipalities. But we have also realized that a lot of unfunded mandates are actually being implemented there as well. We are putting systems in place through, of course, the Department of Treasury to monitor, but also to enforce alignment in terms of the standards that we have put in place in the MFA as well as in the PFMA.
Minister, just in closing, I think for a lot of us, especially given the context of accountability and concern that South Africa is in at the moment, part of what your report mentions is that 93% of senior managers underwent lifestyle audits. That's monitoring. What happened next? How many were disciplined, suspended, or prosecuted? What did it really tell you on the profile of what did it reveal about the profile of those individuals?
As we've already said, 93% has actually been finalized. Obviously, a report would then now come where we have found that there is a misalignment as it relates to the income and the lifestyle of a person. Obviously, further investigations would have to be done so that law enforcement can actually be able to intervene and take steps that are necessary. Of course, at the moment, the Public Service Department haven't been able to give us full report because we are the ones that are actually supporting them to do this. Once they're done with that, would then now be able to give you a report. This process is still ongoing. Obviously, it happens every year. It is a periodic thing. It's not just a once-off thing. It's not an event. As a result, as I've already said, maybe when they are done, when they are done, we'll be able to publish our analysis of the work that they've been able to do. But at the moment, we do know that where there has been misalignment in terms of income and the lifestyle of people, there have been intervention, and law enforcement has been called in to actually intervene as well.
I really wanted to ask another question about consequences, but we are out of time. Minister, thank you for yours, and hopefully we can have a sequel to the conversation and also perhaps then on the release of that report regarding the lifestyle audits. Thank you for your time this morning. That is the Minister for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Minister Maropene Ramokgopa.